Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Sean, the Saints are looking for a new OC after they let go Pete Carmichael. That's something you and I talked about all throughout this season. They've formally now interviewed 7 candidates. I'm going to ask you some big picture stuff, but I want to zero in on one guy in particular that's there in Houston, and that's Gerard Johnson, the former Texas A&M quarterback, who's the quarterback's coach there in Houston. He's got a lot of praise for working with C.J. Stroud this year. I guess two-parter here, Sean. What can you tell us about Johnson, and how much credit does he get for the work he's done with C.J. Stroud this year?
I don't think pure quarterback coaches get enough credit out there, Matt, because in my career, I don't remember spending, and I was close with like Denny Green and Bobby Wright, close coaches, head coach I was really close to. That's like, aside from your family, C.J. Stroud or Derek Carr, anybody will spend no more time outside of their family and rolling around the locker room than they will with their quarterback coach in meetings every day. And we always harp on the quarterback, the head coach, and you got to get a good head coach. He gets a great leadership and buy-in. But I think just as important, and maybe at times more important, is the staff that they hire. And this position's is like being a good goal. It's fragile. The mechanics, the coordinator's got a whole offense. So he's receivers and running backs and O-line putting a game plan in. The quarterback's strictly focused on quarterbacks in that room, meeting with them. They're psychologists, your husband, your wife or husband, whatever it is, your best friend, your hardcore tough love guy. All the time in my career in 10 years, I spent more time with a quarterback coach talking football than I did in one city in Minnesota in 3 years or 5 years or 6 years than I did the whole time, all head coaches combined. And that's not you're removed from the head coaches, but that's where it is. So the teaching, the mechanics. I'll tell you what I know about Gerard. I've known him a long time. Okay. I've watched him with young quarterbacks in high school. I watched him when he broke in because I trained the quarterback at his high school where he was an assistant coach at St. Thomas High School here in Houston. I trained the quarterback that was on his that was a record breaker at his school. He was a really good player. And then he went from there and moved, the Colts and the Vikings. But he's gone through the system. I've always admired, and we've had talks, I've always admired his calm and demeanor approach to the position and the people. It never changes. He's energetic, but he's very his approach to it is calming. And I think the quarterback's time when a coordinator's going, everybody's going haywire. I think that you can have both, but you got to know the room. And the room is C.J. Stroud's calm and relaxed. I love Gerard Johnson. Now, we don't know from position coach to offensive coordinator if he's ready for that, the play calling, but I think he is. He knows football. He's taught every age. He used to be a quarterback trainer here in Houston, then went on to coach at different spots, and he's taken every step. Assistant quarterback coach. He's not a get frustrated, lose his mind type of guy. He's a great calming influence. You could do a lot worse than hire Gerard Johnson with players, but I can tell you this: he deserves. Slowick's going to get the credit for the play calling. But nobody impacted C.J. Stroud's daily mechanics and coaching and understanding how to attack a defense more than the quarterback coach Gerard Johnson did in his room. I think it's an underrated position because we get caught up in coordinators so often, and it's a fragile position too. I love his demeanor.
So you brought up Slowick, who, of course, is from the 49ers Shanahan tree. And, Sean, when you look at the candidates that the Saints have talked to, Brian Griese, Niners; Clint Kubiak, Niners; Shane Waldron, who had been with the Niners and was with the Seahawks; Zach Robinson, Rams; Gerard Johnson, who had previously been with the Niners as well before now being in Houston. It's pretty clear what they're doing. They're looking at Shanahan-McVay tree and going, who can we get? Does that make sense to you, or do we sometimes overvalue that affiliation?
Well, I think I love the system, because it's saying the guy energetic, but because it's so difficult to defend if you have good players, and you got to have good players and people who know how to teach it and coach it. But I get why, because the Rams had no business doing what they did this year, and Stafford, with Sean McVay, bam, they do their thing. Shanahan's a consistent winner. Look what Matt LaFleur's done with Jordan Love. I mean, you go around the league and everywhere with Slowick, with Stroud, it went from like the Bill Walsh stuff to the Bill Belichick, some success, some not much in Bill's assistant coaches, to
Right.
Andy Reid, and now we're down to the Shanahan, this whole tree. And in truth, Andy came from West Coast offense back in the day with Shanahan, that the Andy Reid originally as well, and when he went to Philly. So I get it. We're a copycat league. When you play 3-4 and dominate, everybody wants 3-4. When you play 4-3 and dominate, we all want to play a 4-3. It's personnel. Now, I could tell you some quarterbacks wouldn't be, I mean, the verbiage and all that goes with it may be too much to handle. But all the pre-snap stuff, it's so confusing. But you got to be smart and patient, take your shots. But you have got to be accurate and efficient as a player. So I like it. All those guys from and you know what you're getting with Kubiak's guy and Brian Griese, who's done a fantastic job in San Francisco. All the names that I don't have to bring up are running this same stuff with adding a little bit of their stuff to it. And what Slowick did here, as a guy who has never been a coordinator, it looked like he's been doing it for 6-8 years because he had a guy that fit it. It's all fun and games when the quarterback can operate. It's awesome. But when you got a quarterback who's not accurate or who's injured all the time, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. But I swear by the system mixed in with some other stuff, and I get why those coaches are going to continue. Zach Taylor was in, yes. Look at Zach Taylor, and now look at, Canales has been in Seattle before. There's somewhere the affiliation with a lot of these different guys. They've run into some sort of the system, even though a lot of systems now are multiple with a bunch of different stuff. I see why they're doing it, and I think it is a good thing because the system breeds success if you have a guy that can operate it and run it and a coach that loves teaching it, and you got to buy in by the team, and it's easy to get buy-in. One thing they love to do, you got to run the football, and you got to be, and your guys got to be a patient runner, and they'll teach that regularly. I love the system, and I think you could go wrong with a lot of other guys, and you can go right with a lot of this group. You're not going to go wrong, and a lot of them, they'll be talking on the phone, 8 of them, and 3 of them are going to go get jobs somewhere else more than likely.
The Sean Salisbury is our guest. The Bears hired Shane Waldron, but you could look. I think we're all assuming Detroit's going to be open. I think we all think Ben Johnson's going to get a job.
Ben Johnson, agreed.
The Eagles, the Patriots. All this to say, the Steelers. How desirable is the Saints OC job against the other ones that? It's an NFL OC job, but if there's candidates that are in demand that have options, how desirable is the Saints job?
Well, the pecking order, you start to go around and you think, okay, like for instance, let's say Atlanta for us, or Chicago. You say Fields, okay, is Fields it or are we going Caleb Williams? So it starts there. Listen, when it comes to desirable, if I'm taking a job, Maddie, I want to know that there's buy-in from the ownership has a clue. Like if you're going to Carolina, you better understand you're dealing with a volatile dude in Dave Tepper, regardless that you can't even walk across the street without him wanting to fire you. So you better think of that. But if it's your only offer, you take it. But with the Saints and what's going on, you got to find out at the top. Okay, I trust the top. Now what's next? It goes to the quarterback, and how good is he to work with? So you say, okay, Ritter, Carr, I'll take Carr. Bryce Young, maybe down the road, and I'll take Carr. Justin Fields poses or Caleb Williams, where you get that dual threat guy that can kill you with his legs and has all kinds of ability to throw it. I think it's a desirable job because the organization's been a winning organization. They've got a veteran quarterback. Now, when we get into salary cap and assets and, tied down with money, Carr, I've told you, I don't think Derek Carr's winning a Super Bowl, but right now you don't have a choice. So I think Carr can operate that. And I like Derek Carr, but I don't love him. And that's the difference for me. So for me, I'm taking the job, if it's Atlanta and Atlanta's got weapons in London and Pitts and Bijan Robinson. So you look at where you're going and what their commitment is to offseason. What kind of quarterback do I have and how's my personnel? And then you better learn how to get physical. So if there's one offer, they'll do it. But there's a couple out there that is it Caleb or Fields? Can you get me one? And where you're drafting. I think Washington with new ownership is a interesting gig. Because even if you go from Sam Howell, you're picking 2, right. You may get Drake May. You got a guy that you get to grow with like Bobby Slowick did with C.J. Stroud. So I think that has something to do with it. And sometimes veterans are set in their ways as quarterbacks and may not fit into what you're trying to do. But it starts there. Buy-in from the top of the ownership and their commitment to it. And then it comes in, whether you're a coordinator or a head coach. I'm speaking to both, but a coordinator of can that guy operate what I'm going to be teaching, and do we have enough weapons for him, and where are we headed with this? I think the Saints is a desirable job, and I think it would figure somewhere in the middle of the ones because of the lack of assets and or money that they can't go spend on another quarterback right now.
Okay. He's on Twitter at Sean Unfiltered. Last thing for you, Sean. Whenever I talk about anything here, I always like to. I have an opinion. We get paid to give opinions. So it's really weird for me because people ask, "Well, Matt, who do you want to be the OC?" And I really don't have an answer. I know what I don't want. I don't want to retread.
Agreed.
I want someone off of this tree, but I don't know enough about these guys and their resume to know who I think would be the best. So let me ask you: the Saints have interviewed 7 candidates. I'll give you the names. Now, Dan Pitcher is going to be the OC in Cincinnati, so he's off. Shane Waldron has taken the job in Chicago, so he's off. So it's one of these 5 as of now. There could be more, but as of now, it's one of these 5. Brian Griese, Clint Kubiak, Gerard Johnson, Zach Robinson, and then Ronald Curry, who's the in-house candidate. Which of those 5? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matty. I'm sorry. I think it, and Matty, I can't emphasize this enough, and I know I've said it to you on here. People should never get caught up in just because you can coach a position, the rhythm of a play caller is not easy. So it's a unique skill set. Oh, yeah, because they all know X's and O's, but the ability to call in rhythm and get going and doing all these things like that and knowing what you want is a task, and some aren't good at it, just like some coordinators that go to head coaches aren't good. I'd start with Brian Griese. There's a lot of different reasons. He's seen with football from a lot of different vantage points. He's another guy who's calm and understands the position because he wasn't a first-round pick. He was a guy that was, he doesn't have he wasn't that guy that you said he's so physically gifted. High football IQ, loves accuracy, and look what he did in San Francisco. They've been through Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. He took the last pick of the draft and has got him as an MVP candidate. And that he knows that system. He's always believed in the run game. When he's had success in his career, they've run it. And I think that I think he's ready. I think all of them give you something. To me, Brian Griese gives you a little element because there's a little more experience and a little more, well, he's not old, a little more age and maybe hardened on his side that he can handle maybe more criticism than a young guy coming in. I'm not saying they can't. So for me, I'll start there with Griese because I think I like the quarterback coach to be energetic, and I don't care if you cuss me out, but a guy that I like leadership in chaos. And I think Brian Griese lasted a while in the NFL because I think he could handle the leadership in chaos. And his old man was very similar. Maybe not as talented as the rest as a player. I think Brian's learned from some real good ones. I'd start there of those 5. Now, if you wouldn't have got rid of the other guys, maybe a different conversation. Of those 5, I'd be intrigued because if Gerard leaves, and Slowick leaves, I would want them to consider both Kubiak and Brian Griese. Bring Brian Griese over because I think he understands not only the position part of it, but how to call plays for a guy that's maybe not the most talented. It's one thing to call plays for Mahomes. It's another thing to call plays for Brock Purdy,
right?
And get him to operate it like Mahomes. So I think Brian Griese is a sneaky candidate. I don't know if he'll get it, but I can tell you this: when he does, I think somebody's going to benefit from it.
I love it, man. That's perspective like that is why I love talking to you every week, man. We're so grateful to have you. He's Sean Salisbury on Twitter at Sean Unfiltered. Of course, Sports Talk 790 there in Houston. Man, you're the best. Always appreciate it. I think we got to do this one more time, man, to preview the Super Bowl. So I'll look forward to it.
As many times as you want to be bored talking to me, brother, I'm in. You know that.
You're the best, Sean. We appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.